You've been told to push harder, wake earlier, grind longer. Yet the tighter you grip, the more life slips through your fingers, like trying to hold water in a fist. Here is the paradox. Almost nobody teaches the moment you stop forcing things. Begin to move, not because you quit, but because you align. This is the quiet engine behind effortless action, what the Taoists called Wu-Wei, and what Alan Watts translated as no compulsion. It isn't laziness, it's skillful surrender. It's the art of doing without strain. Imagine a slow tracking shot of you on a Monday morning. Coffee trembling in your hand inbox, flashing like a casino heart, beating like a trapped bird. Hustle culture whispers that peace is on the other side of one more sprint, one more hack, one more late night to catch up. But notice a simple truth. The harder you try to relax, the tighter your jaw becomes. Try to fall asleep and sleep runs away. Try to be confident on a first date, and your voice cracks on the most basic hello. Wu-Wei points out the trap hiding in plain sight. Many of the things we want, most show up when we stop demanding them. Alan Watts called it no compulsion because it feels like action without the inner push. Not passive, not sleepy, clear, responsive. It's like opening a stubborn lock. You can yank until the metal warms with frustration, or you can pause, loosen your grip, feel for the tumblers, and turn with just the right pressure. One way inflames your ego. The other way opens the door. Wu-Wei is the second way, scaled to your entire life. There is a neurotic pilot in your head who insists on flying the plane by micromanaging the flaps every second. That pilot is your conscious self-monitoring voice. It has important jobs, planning, learning, evaluating. But it's slow. It burns fuel. It can't juggle 10 variables at once during a storm. So the Taoists suggest a different cockpit. Let the autopilot you've trained your embodied intelligence fly when the weather is rough. Think of it as delayed control. You study when the seas are calm. You practice scales, you watch film, you rehearse the slide deck. Then during the performance, you don't make it happen. You get out of the way and let what you've practiced move through you. There's a reason athletes call it being in the zone, and jazz musicians call it letting the horn play me. Watts would smile at those phrases. He loved the way water shows us how power and softness marry. Water doesn't argue with rock. It flows around it, enters the cracks, and reshapes mountains over time. Wu-Wei is water behavior. It isn't slumping on the couch. It's persistence without tension direction, without rigidity. You move with the grain of the wood, not against it, and the cut is clean. Maybe you hear this and think, that sounds nice, but I have deadlines, children, and an ancient car that dies on left turns. Fair. Wu-Wei isn't a fantasy for monks. It is a street-level practice for people with grocery lists. Here's what it looks like when you zoom in. You're writing an email you've postponed for 3 weeks. You've opened and closed the draft 10 times. You keep polishing the greeting and scolding yourself for procrastinating. Notice the choke point pressure to be perfect is throttling the message you actually need to send. Try something subversive. Stand up, breathe, walk to the window. Let your eyes widen until you can feel the room again. Come back and write it badly on purpose. 3 sentences, then stop. That tiny act of non-forcing often unlocks the channel. You send the email. The world doesn't explode. In fact, it answers. Wu-Wei is also the quiet discipline of timing. We think timing is luck, but timing is perception. When you're not clinched, you can sense ripeness. Fishermen know when the tide turns. Gardeners know when the soil is ready. In work, in love, in difficult conversations, ripeness matters more than bravado. The Western mind often glorifies the sprinter. Taoism bows to the farmer. One forces a finish line. The other collaborates with seasons. Both work. Only one keeps your nervous system intact. This is where the idea of trust slides in, not as a fluffy meme, but as a practical technology. Trust in the process doesn't mean do nothing. It means let your actions be guided by feedback, not fear. Fear narrows your vision. Feedback opens it. Fear says, I must close the deal right now. Feedback says, they leaned forward when I told the origin story. Ask them a question there. Fear pushes. Feedback invites. Wu-Wei prefers the second because it keeps you connected to reality as it unfolds. To feel this in your body, remember learning to ride a bike. You didn't master it by calculating micro angles of handlebar correction. You wobbled, you fell, you laughed, you tried again until something clicked. The click was not extra effort. It was the removal of the effort that didn't belong. Your legs began to circle on their own. Your eyes looked where you wanted to go instead of where you feared to crash. The bike was still work, but it was no longer war. That difference, work versus war, is the line between compulsion and flow. There is a moral dimension to Wu-Wei too. Though it is gentler than commandments, it asks, what is your natural shape? Are you honest by nature? Then notice how much energy it costs to manage the smallest lie. Are you creative by nature? Then see how you wither inside spreadsheet-only weeks. Hiding from your nature is expensive. Acting with it is economical. Wu-Wei is frugality of spirit. No wasted motion. No pretending to be oak when you are water or wind or fire. When you are true to your grain, the world often stops resisting you because you have stopped resisting yourself. This is not manifesting. This is mechanics. A violin sounds rich when the strings are tuned to their intended tension. Too tight and the string snaps. Too loose and it flaps without a tone. Life is the same. Wu-Wei is the sweet tension between structure and ease. Show up. Practice. Then soften enough to let what you've practiced play through you. Our story now moves into offices and Zoom rooms, workshops, and kitchens, and we'll watch how effortless action turns tasks into craft problems, into puzzles, and pressure into presence. Not by magic, by alignment. The office hums like it's caffeinated. Slack pings or rain on tin. Jordan walks in without a cape. He doesn't announce a philosophy. He changes his morning. For 30 minutes, no inbox. He maps the first 5 minutes of a new user's life on their app like a river delta. What a hand does, where a glance goes where friction bruises a mood. That's cold cognition. That's training. He sends the designer one sentence. What if step 1 had 2 fewer fields? Then he builds a tiny script that logs the split second when most people hesitate. After that, he does nothing for 5 minutes on purpose. Chair back, eyes soft, not scrolling. He's letting his nervous system see context without commentary. Cut to a close-up of his shoulders, dropping 5%. 6 frames of silence, then back to the room. If you're waiting for a miracle, you'll miss the craft. The first week is messy. He waits for ripeness and misses a small window. A competitor drops a clever hook and they lose a lead. He heads home with the flavor of failure in his mouth and 40 opinions in his head. This is the cost of learning timing. You find it by missing it. The team is frustrated. Are we just not pushing anymore? Someone asks, not unkindly. The old Jordan would sprint harder to prove he still has it. This Jordan does a riskier thing. He tells the truth in one clear sentence. I mistook drift for softness. Last sprint. That's on me. We're keeping the effort. We're removing the strain. It isn't a speech. It's coordination. The room doesn't cheer. It exhales. Stakes arrive like a weather alert. The COO's voice is a metronome. 15% activation by next week, or we cut the Q4 roadmap. The number drops on screen in heavy type plus 15% or cut Q4. Jordan's jaw tightens, then releases. Pattern interrupt, a 2-beat cut to black. Sound of a ticking microwave stops mid-tick. Back to the war room. He doesn't chase the number with noise. He chooses one lever he can move without forced first-click friction. 90 minutes of quiet mapping. A designer traces the thumb's journey like a shoreline. A copywriter replaces brochure-safe text with a sentence that sounds like a person. 2 fields gone, 1 button moved. The code diff looks boring. Boring is often the doorway to obvious. They ship. Now, the work meets the water. Activation day 1 lifts by 17%. The number appears small at first, then swells across the frame, plus 17% D1. Support tickets begin to drop by 23% week over week. That stat glides in at the edge of the screen, then locks center like a landing bird. 23% tickets. The room doesn't whoop, it nods. It's not a miracle. It's mechanics. Failure doesn't leave just because you've read a proverb. In week 3, a bug ships. Support tickets pile like laundry. A siren tone slices the air. The old compulsion returns with its cape and slogans. Jordan stays late but refuses frenzy. He runs what musicians and surgeons know by heart, learns slowly, play fast. He writes a dirty fix to stop the bleeding, then sleeps. That's the dangerous sentence. He sleeps. Not to abandon the problem, to let hot cognition solve what cold cognition already taught. Morning brings the click he couldn't yank at 2 a.m. He rolls a clean patch. Crash rate falls 61%. The rating nudges from 3.9 to 4.3 the following week. Numbers slide onto the screen like quiet weather. 61% crash, 3.9, 4.3. Then he does the hardest thing. He writes a non-defensive post-mortem with his name in it. Ambition hasn't died. Watch his calendar breathe. He front-loads outbound work when the water is calm. He saves reactive work for the afternoon when the tide is messy. He ends meetings 5 minutes early to end with warmth instead of scramble. The team's rhythm shifts. Stress doesn't vanish. It becomes useful. People are less brittle. The product's voice warms. And yes, there are days that still implode. That's not a contradiction. That's a career. The difference is that the implosions don't bleed into every hour of the week. Recovery is quicker because strain never climbed to the red. Because you ask for reality, the bad day arrives. Thursday. He times a close wrong and loses a deal that would have paid for a quarter. The number appears brutal and honest. $180,000, ACV 12% of runway. He bikes home furious. He blames the universe, then himself, then a stranger who looked at him wrong. At the apartment door, he does exactly one Wu-Wei move. He lowers his shoulders and lets the world be a little heavier for 10 seconds. The audio thins. You hear only a refrigerator's drone. He cooks an egg. He calls his sister. He sleeps like a man who didn't perform a perfect life. Friday shows up anyway. He practices. He surrenders. He works. No montage music. Just a person who stopped ramming the door and started finding the hinge. Now step out of the office into the places where strain hides in softer clothes. The camera drifts over a bedroom at 2:11 a.m. Insomnia laughs at lavender tea. Jordan tries to sleep using let go as a command. He orders his body to relax. The body does what bodies do when bullied. It rebels. The mind begins a PowerPoint of everything he's ever worried about, scored by a red clock. He tries the classic hacks, fails them all, and then because he remembers failure as teacher, he changes the question. Not sleep, contact. He returns to the weight of his body like a fisherman returning to water. Tongue rests against the floor of the mouth. Jaw unhooks. Breath turns into a long vowel. Thoughts arrive without prosecution. He doesn't knock out. He dozes, wakes, dozes, again. It's not cinematic. It's human. He gets enough. The first date is worse. He over-prepares, then remembers he's chill now, then overcorrects into bored. The conversation stutters like a cheap motor. He hears himself summarizing a book he didn't finish. This is where our lecture would like to swoop in and save him. It doesn't. He bombs. He tells a weird joke about sourdough starters that hangs in the air like a damp curtain. He walks home in the soft shame of trying to be someone else. The next time he does the smallest clean thing, he asks one true question and lets silence be a room, not a threat. He watches for the moment the other person's eyes brighten, and he follows that thread instead of flexing a curated self. There's no montage, no kiss and rain, just two people who feel like people, not sales decks. He texts the next day with a line that doesn't ask for proof. That's Wu-Wei. In romance, less theater, more contact. And because passivity dresses up as depth, he makes a repair on date 3. He brings the tea she mentioned in passing, the one with cardamom. No compulsion is not no initiative. Interviews. Test compulsion in a suit. He practices in the calm. Bullet point stories a handful of honest failures with their repairs. Then walking toward the door, he touches the frame and says under his breath, "I trust my training." The phrase moves control from forehead to spine. In the room, a curveball arrives. He pauses a beat longer than is comfortable. He answers the question he heard, not the one he rehearsed. It lands. Not because it's perfect, but because it's accurate. And yes, he still loses offers sometimes. Wu-Wei doesn't bribe the world. It tunes you to it. Emergencies swing in like a door, blown open. The kid spikes a fever. The dog swallows a screw. The production database goes sideways. Effortless action is not slow action. It's unforced speed. The firefighter running up the stairs is Wu-Wei. When training runs his legs, and his eyes keep the panoramic view, that panic collapses. He has rehearsed carrying a body down a narrow stairwell so often that he can allow speed without commentary. In your life that looks like this, you act decisively with the training you have. Then return to softness. The moment ends. You don't stay clenched out of habit. You don't wear your adrenaline like a badge. Crisis resolves. You put the cape down. You return to being a mammal. Pause here for your body. On screen, a soft timer appears. For the next 15 seconds, do the drill with me. Release, reorient, respond. Release 5% of your body, jaw, tongue, shoulders. Reorient to 3 things you can see, 2 you can touch, 1 you can hear. Now respond with the smallest, next action that changes reality, not your story. Send 1 sentence. Drink water. Ask, what would make this 10% better? The timer fades. The room changes temperature by 1 degree. That's enough to avoid the spiral. Pattern interrupts keep you awake to your own life. Between scenes, we cut to a kettle exhaling to city light on a wet sidewalk, to a single grain of salt hitting a cutting board. Your nervous system likes rhythm. Give it rhythm and it gives you perception. Perception gives you timing. Timing saves you from sprinting past the moment that was actually yours. And now the dark belly of this ark, the all is lost you asked for, because you live here sometimes. It's near midnight. A blank email glows. Subject line, resignation. Draft. The cursor blinks like a small lighthouse with no shore. He's done. He will call it Wu-Wei, but it is escape. The camera holds on his hands. They don't move. The refrigerator hums. He does not answer his sister's call. He breathes. Then he does the single honest thing available. He closes the draft and opens the post-mortem. He writes the sentence that costs but cleans. I pushed for timing I didn't have, and I masked drift as softness. Here's what I will change. He sleeps 90 minutes. Morning brings the click. He patches what he can. He repairs what he broke. He apologizes where it matters. He does not resign from the practice of his life. He resigns from the theater. Meaning isn't a summit where monks hand you a certificate. It's a choreography of small obediences to your nature and the world's. It grows in low adrenaline places, the ones our culture underrates, because you can't brag about them without killing them. A neighbor needs a ride. You say yes and don't keep score. A child tells you the same joke 7 times. You laugh like it's a new planet, because for them, it is. You wash a cup you didn't use. You text a thank you to the person everyone forgets to thank. None of this trends. All of this builds a life that doesn't need applause to know its name. At dinner, Wu-Wei sits at the table, like an old friend who doesn't need a seat of honor. A pot murmurs. Steam becomes a small ghost. Salt is added until the soup tastes like itself, not like an idea of soup. Someone begins a disagreement. No one prosecutes it like a courtroom. It's named, turned in the light, set down. The room wins, not the point. You will feel it in your shoulders the next morning. They hang lower. Your jaw forgot to armor overnight. That isn't a miracle. It's the absence of wasted motion. To make this tactile run the week-long experiment. For 7 days, be a good host to your life. In the morning, greet your list like guests, not intruders. Ask each task, what do you need from me to move naturally? Give the hardest one a clean, accurate pass before your brain gathers a crowd. At midday, step away for 10 minutes on purpose, not as a treat, as training. Let your eyes be windows, not searchlights. Return and let your trained hands handle the next knot while your mind leans back. In the evening, repair a small piece of shared fabric, an apology, a hinge, a thank you. Keep the week boring. Watch velocity increase while frantic decreases. If it doesn't remove pressure at the joints instead of adding commands, because numbers teach better than slogans. We show the quiet scoreboard again. After the 2 fields are cut and the copy learns to sound human, activation D1 holds at plus 17%. Support tickets trend downward, 23% per week through the month. The bugs patch brings crash rate down 61%, and ratings drift from 3.9 to 4.3. Not fireworks, tides. In a second row of numbers, you don't get to post-sleep increases by 40 minutes on average phone pickups after 10 p.m. Drop by 22%, and the single worst habit, doom scrolling before bed, shrinks by half. Your nervous system calls this a raise. Before we close, one more viewer. Drill 15 seconds that often buys you an hour. Put the tongue down. Let it rest like a leaf on water. Unclench your jaw and drop your shoulders, as if someone gently placed a warm towel across them. Look around the room and find one object that is quietly on your side. A cup, a plant, a clean spoon. Count 3 slow breaths. Then write one sentence you've been avoiding badly on purpose. Now stop. That's it. The point isn't perfection. The point is to replace compulsion with contact. You might ask, if I stop forcing, won't I fall behind? Behind what? The race. Your fear invented so it could justify living on fumes. Wu-Wei does not erase effort. It directs it. Think of a surfer again. The paddling is real. The legs burn. The lungs negotiate with the lungs of the sea. But the wave does most of the carrying. Life has waves. They are not mystical. They are patterns, market cycles, seasons of energy openings in people's attention. If you spend all day thrashing at flat water, you will accuse the ocean of withholding. If you learn to read the sets, you can afford to rest between them and explode when they arrive. Your calendar is not a treadmill. It's a tide table disguised as a grid. Mark slack water for maintenance. Mark incoming tides for bold bets. Miss a wave. There will be another. Force the wrong one. You'll drink the ocean. Even that teaches timing if you let it. When Alan Watts said no compulsion, he was not inviting you to coast. He was inviting you to tune. Train deliberately in the calm. Perform without commentary in the heat. Replace the theater of control with the accuracy of contact. Learn the difference between drift and softness, between surrender and collapse, between speed and panic. You will still have nights you don't sleep, calls, you blow days, you wear your nerves like a shirt on backward. And then you'll do the smallest clean thing. Release, reorient, respond. And the day will stop spiraling. Your week will tilt toward coherence. Coherence over time is indistinguishable from peace. If this widened your chest by ½ an inch, if it gave you one place to remove 5% of the push that never belonged, I want to keep building this with you. Like this video if you felt the hinge open. Share it with a friend who has only ever been taught to shove. Subscribe for more slow, honest explorations into a life that moves without strain. And tell me in the comments, where will you try gently this week? Your story is how we learn together.